Hello everyone! Today's episode is going to be pretty short and sweet, but still exciting and fun for me because I want to talk to you about something all the cool kids and squids are doing, and that is parkour! Back in the sound effect cues episode, I may have been pretty harsh on climbing walls, but this time around I'm going to be showing them a bit of love on the ways they can quite literally help you elevate your gameplay, get around quicker, and cover for you. You know how some video games provide a stat breakdown of characters and their particular playing style, such as how Mario Tennis will divide characters by well-rounded, power, technique, speed, and tricky. I heavily identify as that last one. Sometimes I think it's fun to imagine similar categories for aspects of Splatoon, and if I had to give an honest depiction of my playstyle and skills with the qualities of accuracy, offense, defense, speed, turfing, objective, and tricky, because not quite sure what else to call it, I think I would come out something like this. I live for the mind games and use them to supplement any of my shortcomings in any other areas. My goal will usually be to deceive you and defeat you, and that's why I'm so obsessed with the Ninja Squid ability so much, as I used it all of Splatoon 1, and why I want to collect every piece of gear of it that shows up in the shop, which I'm currently up to 69 different pieces of gear with the Ninja Squid ability. The good thing about actual player ability is that we aren't limited to a static statistical build, and we have the flexibility to adjust our play on the fly, should that require more offense or defense, or me not needing to be so sneaky and play a bit more conventional and safer. But I want to share one of my tricky tricks of my trade, and that's finally where we get into some parkour. Parkour can help you expand your options for moving across the map, and getting to certain areas with an element of unpredictability. And when used in combat, it still maintains that element of unpredictability, as well as controlling the flow of battle by knowing exactly where you're going to go, which then leaves it up to your opponent to quickly adapt to where you move, giving you an extra advantageous layer of being one step ahead in knowing how they have to adjust. Let's start with how parkour adds creativity to your routing. The typical main path is easy to predict and monitor, and sometimes it's even slower as you usually have to go from a point A to B, then to C. But parkour adds shortcut possibilities to take you from A to C, and sometimes even to a D. The layout of Moray Towers is an easy example, as there are ramps that ascend and every layer has some type of turfable wall on the side that can alternatively enable you to reach higher elevations. For example, on Moray Rainmaker, knowing that you can paint a wall that leads to what I call the enemy overlook. This is a pretty mainstream shortcut, but imagine not knowing that this was an option and thinking you had to take the ramps one at a time, and how much longer and harder that would be. And regardless of whether some maps have more useful walls to climb, or they're a bit harder to find than others, at the very least studying the maps and knowing where you can climb at all times will provide you with the most amount of options. And you know me, so I always explore what the world has to offer me using the recon and check every nook and cranny. I'll go ahead and share with you some of my favorites. Some of them may be pretty simple, such as the little difference between being on the bridge or just being on the side railing on the reef, but not everything has to be flashy to be effective. It's important to keep in mind how the mode may change the details of a map in terms of the layout. Now coming at parkour more from the combat side, you ever notice those areas on certain maps where they have a pretty random block that just sits there? Sometimes they help provide shortcuts, but maybe you've found that you never really make use of them, or knew how to. There's a type of shooter genre known as cover-based shooters that allow the player to take cover behind obstacles to avoid enemy fire as a key mechanic to the game. And while that's not built in for Splatoon, the principle is still available. There's something known in Splatoon as right-side peeking, and that's due to the fact that all Inklings are right-handed. Or more accurately, when shooting their weapon, it's more favorably held on the right side of their body. And with this, you can cheat towards the right side of a wall or some type of cover, and your weapon can stick out just a bit past it to still get off some clean shots, and your body isn't very exposed to enemy fire, which can be very advantageous if you have cover and your opponent doesn't. Things to note are that every weapon can make use of right side peeking. But it's way more beneficial for some than others. Mainly speaking for rollers and brushes. They can still do it to some degree, but it's just not as effective as a lot of the ink will be caught by the wall. Left side peeking is also technically a thing, but it will usually lose out to right side peeks, as your body has to extend out far enough to get the weapon on the right side of your body past the wall, that you're hardly even behind your cover being exposed so far. That being said, having right side advantage doesn't automatically mean you win, as it still comes down to aim in the end. A change I would have loved to have seen Nintendo implement would have been to make Octolings left-handed. It would make for a slight tactical difference between Inklings and Octolings that I don't feel would be game-breaking either. But maybe one day we'll get that left-handed representation. The tower and tower control also makes for some great cover at times, and the fact it's mobile can be handy as well. But now I'll show you some examples of when I've used a bit of parkour and walls as cover, and this time around I don't really have to break anything down as they all kind of speak for themselves. Sometimes that extra bit of cover can help prolong a battle long enough for help to come and assist you, or enable you to land those extra hits yourself. But as long as you're able to think creatively, and your opponent never even thought of those extra possibilities, they'll have a hard time being able to beat you, let alone hit you, all because they limited their own way of thinking inside the box, and you're outside their realm of possibility. In a game already full of C-puns, it makes it even more fitting that the world of Splatoon is your oyster, and it's important to know how to use any option you have available, whether you need to get around quickly or find yourself in a random battle. So go out there and practice some parkour and see if you can then climb to the top of the ranks. I apologize for being a little bit sick this episode, but hopefully it wasn't too noticeable. But anyway, that's all I've got for this episode. This has been the Gingerbread Man, and you can catch me in the next episode. Thanks for watching.